Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Islamabad says New Delhi has militarized the Indian Ocean, of which Pakistan is an important stakeholder. Addressing the International Maritime Conference in Karachi, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India's hostile policies are a threat to regional and global peace and security. Meanwhile, Navy Chief Admiral Amjad Khan Niazi said efforts are being made to secure the maritime boundaries of Pakistan. Pakistan's army says a soldier was martyred during an exchange of fire with terrorists in southwestern Balochistan's province. The army media wing says the area around the security post in KATALONIA district has been cordoned off. In a statement, ISPR said escape routes have been blocked to apprehend the fleeing terrorists. Iran has threatened to further scale back its commitments under the 2015 nuclear deal if parties fail to fulfill their obligations, referring to an Iranian law that obliges the government to harden its nuclear stance. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh said Tehran has no option but to respect the law. The spokesperson added it does not mean halting all inspections by the UN nuclear watchdog. The death toll from COVID-19 in Mexico has topped 174,000 after the country reported over 400 daily fatalities. In Brazil, over 700 people lost their lives overnight, with more than 239,000 deaths since the pandemic began. While Pakistan has reported more than 1,000 cases and 26 deaths in the past 24 hours. This has pushed the nationwide toll to 12,333. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 2.4 million lives and infected more than 108 million people. And in the National Basketball Association, the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Toronto Raptors 116-112 in a Western Conference clash at the Tampa Arena. Karl Anthony Towns scored 20 points, grabbed 11 rebounds and 3 blocks to spearhead the victory for the Timberwolves. These were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Islamabad says New Delhi has militarized the Indian Ocean, of which Pakistan is an important stakeholder. Addressing the International Maritime Conference in Karachi, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India's hostile policies are a threat to regional and global peace and security. Qureshi congratulated the Pakistan Navy for successfully conducting the Aman 2021 drills in which more than 40 countries participated. He said one of Pakistan's Navy ships is currently on a humanitarian supply mission to Africa. The Foreign Minister said there is a need to safeguard the world's oceans as a global public commodity. Qureshi called for the ocean resources-driven economy to be brought to the center of national paradigm. The Foreign Minister pointed out that coastal tourism can contribute up to $4 billion to Pakistan's economy. Meanwhile, Navy Chief Admiral Amjad Khan Niazi said efforts are being made to secure the maritime boundaries of Pakistan. Now, Pakistan's army says a soldier was martyred during an exchange of fire with terrorists in the southwestern Balochistan province. The army's media wing says the terrorist attacked the checkpoint installed to secure the N85 national highway near Hoshab. In a statement, the ISPR said the area around the post in KATALONIA district has been cordoned off. It said escape routes have been blocked to apprehend fleeing terrorists. No group or individual has claimed responsibility for the attack yet. Moving on to Afghanistan, where 5 policemen have been killed and 3 more wounded in separate incidents in Zabul and Uruzgan provinces. Zabul Police Chief Hekmat Kochi said 4 security personnel were killed and 2 others wounded in a Taliban attack on a checkpost. He said 2 fighters were also killed and 3 others wounded in retaliation. Meanwhile, Uruzgan Governor's office says 1 policeman was killed and 1 more wounded in an improvised explosive device blast. No group, including the Taliban, have claimed responsibility for the attacks yet. Now in India, another farmer, Ramji Lal, has committed suicide amid mass protests against the Modi government's new laws. His family says Lal had been assaulted by electricity department officials and served an inflated power bill.
Ramji Lal is the latest of over 200 farmers who have lost their lives in 3 months of agitation. The victim's family says he hanged himself after officials turned up at the house, disgraced him and handed him an electricity bill of $2,067. Lal's family and friends placed the body in front of the government office, refusing to proceed with his last rites. They demanded a police case should be registered against the officials, but were denied. Meanwhile, farm unions said they are intensifying their movement to repeal the laws that expose them to corporate exploitation. 40 leaders spearheading the agitation against the Modi government will tour the country to drum up support. On Sunday, Mahatma Gandhi's granddaughter, Tara Gandhi, visited the farmers protesting at Delhi border and extended support for their movement.
Moving on now, Iran is threatened to further scale back its commitments under the 2015 nuclear deal if parties fail to fulfill their obligations. Referring to an Iranian law that obliges the government to harden its nuclear stance, Foreign Ministry Saeed Khatibzadeh said Iran has no option but to respect the law. The spokesperson added it does not mean ending all inspections by the UN nuclear watchdog. However, he insisted that, said Tehran has not sought and will never seek nuclear weapons. Earlier, Iran's intelligence minister had said persistent Western pressure could push Tehran to fight back and seek nuclear weapons. Now, in Myanmar, security forces have deployed armored vehicles in major cities as fears of a crackdown on anti-coup protests mount. The United Nations, European Union, United Kingdom, Canada and 11 other nations have called on the coup leaders to refrain from violence against civilians. More than a dozen gun-mounted vehicles, police trucks and water cannon vehicles are patrolling the streets in all major cities of Myanmar. The coup leaders have released a statement outlining punishment for protesters, raising fears of a major crackdown on the demonstrators. But that has not stopped hundreds of thousands from continuing their protests for the 11th straight day, rejecting the military rule and demanding the restoration of democracy. Employees of the country's central bank in Yangon joined the protests, refusing to resume work.
The central bank is the lifeblood of the country's monetary system. Many soldiers and armored vehicles are deployed at the bank as the military is concerned that the central bank is inactive. But we are doing peaceful protest without arms and with no intention to violence, to call for civil disobedience movement and fight for the freedom of government staff.
On Sunday, many were wounded as the military opened fire to disperse protesters outside a power plant in Myat, the capital of Kachin State. Thwart, a teenager shot in the head by police, is battling death at a local hospital. But activists say they cannot let such acts of coercion deter their spirits.
Although the family has not yet decided to pull the plug on the Thwart Kwang, who is still at the hospital, we already feel our oxygen is already unplugged. Now, we are not safe at all during day or night time under the military regime. So, we can't accept the new military regime and we try to bring the administration system to a halt by continuing with the civil disobedience movement. We have to oppose all the rule by various forms.
Protesters demand the immediate release of ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other politicians. Suu Kyi's lawyers say she has been remanded in custody until Wednesday, the 17th of February. Now, the Saudi-led military coalition in Yemen says it has intercepted and destroyed another armed Houthi drone. Saudi state media quoted a coalition spokesperson as saying the drone was the latest in a series of attempts by the militias to target civilians. It said this was the 6th such attempts in the last 5 days. Earlier on Sunday, the group offered to halt their attacks on the kingdom if the coalition forces agreed to stop airstrikes on Houthis in return. Moving on now, Syria's army says the country's air defences have intercepted Israeli aggression over Damascus. An army statement says Israeli military planes flew over the Golan Heights to hit targets on the edge of the capital. The statement added the air defences downed most of the missiles. No casualties were reported in the latest attack. There are witness accounts of large explosions on the southern edge of Damascus, an area where militias are entrenched. A Syrian military defector said the bombing raids hit a major army division in the town of Kiswa. Israel's military did not immediately comment on the strike. Now, the death toll from COVID-19 in Mexico has topped 174,000 after the country reported over 400 daily fatalities. In Brazil, over 700 people lost their lives overnight, with more than 239,000 deaths since the pandemic began. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 2.4 million lives and infected more than 108 million people. Let's find out more in this report. Even after a significant drop in the new infections worldwide, health experts say precautions to slow the spread of COVID-19 must remain in place. Average daily new cases in the United States have dipped below 100,000 for the first time in months. But the director of U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has warned it is too soon to lift the mask mandate. Dr. Rochelle Walensky also anticipates that every American who wants to be vaccinated will be able to get a jab by the end of summer. In Peru, a day after the health minister resigned, Foreign Minister Elizabeth Astet has also stepped down after acknowledging she received a dose of the vaccine outside of clinical trials and before the national immunization program began. Brazil has confirmed cases of the UK variant of the coronavirus after sequencing test samples taken on December 31st. Meanwhile, Brazil's Amazon region, the birthplace of a new, reportedly 3 times more contagious variant, has received COVID-19 vaccines as the country steps up immunizations to better protect at-risk indigenous residents.
Here at Polo Base Makira, we have topped 90% of indigenous residents who have had their first vaccine. We can't reach 100% because of factors that prevent some indigenous residents from taking the vaccine.
In Europe, to avert a chaotic end to coronavirus lockdown measures, the Czech government has reached a last-minute deal with regional governors to call a new state of emergency for 14 days. Italy has prevented ski resorts from opening a day before skiing was due to be allowed for the first time this winter season. Meanwhile, once the hardest-hit country in the region, the United Kingdom, is vigorously taking steps to eliminate the virus. A hotel quarantine rule for arrivals from high-risk COVID countries has come into force. The first in the world to approve a vaccine, the British government has also achieved an ambitious target of reaching 15 million jabs by the 15th of February.
Today, we have reached a significant milestone in the United Kingdom's national vaccination programme. On the 8th of December, just after 6:30 in the morning, this country's first coronavirus jab was delivered safely into the arms of Margaret Keenan at University Hospital in Coventry. In the following 2 months, this country has achieved an extraordinary feat, administering a total of 15 million jabs into the arms of some of the most vulnerable people in the country.
South Korea has eased some of its strictest social distancing rules for businesses, but kept limits on private gatherings as it prepares to announce a vaccine plan. Australia has also confirmed that a national vaccine rollout is on track to begin next week. The country has suspended quarantine-free travel with neighbouring New Zealand after new community cases were detected in Auckland. Now, in Pakistan, 26 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. This has pushed the death toll to 12,333. The Health Ministry says 1,048 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The country has recorded more than 564,000 cases since the pandemic began, out of which 525,000 people have recovered. Health officials say there are currently close to 26,000 active cases in the country. Meanwhile, the UK has announced that Pakistan will receive 7 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine within 2 months. In a statement, the British High Commission said Pakistan will get 17 million doses of the jab through the COVAX facility. Pakistan has started the process of registering citizens 65 and above for the COVID-19 vaccination drive in March. In a tweet, Federal Minister for Planning and Development Asad Umar said the government has designated 582 facilities for the inoculation process, supported by digital mechanisms. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now moving on with the news stories. Pro-Madrid Socialist Party has claimed a narrow victory against the secessionist Republican left in the Sunday vote in Catalonia. With over 99% of the ballots counted, both parties are set to command an equal number of seats in the region's 135-seat parliament. Exit polls show the Socialists won over 625,000 votes, giving them 33 seats in the legislature. The Republican left only claimed around 508,000 votes, but is also expected to have 33 lawmakers in the assembly. Two other pro-secession parties, the centre-right Junts and the left-wing CUP, got 41 seats between them. In total, the separatist bloc has boosted its parliamentary presence from 70 lawmakers in 2017 to 74 following the Sunday vote. Now in Kosovo, the preliminary results of the parliamentary elections indicate that opposition party Vete Vendoje is set to win. The Democratic Party of Kosovo is forecast to secure second place, while the ruling Democratic League of Kosovo is likely to come third. After 87% of the votes counted, the State Election Commission showed Vete Vendoje in the lead with 47.8%. But results indicate the party is not likely to secure a majority of 61 seats in parliament and will need to find a coalition partner. Vete Vendoje leader Albin Kurti has pledged to fight corruption and has a hardline stance on border disputes with Serbia. Kurti says the main priority of his party is justice and creating jobs. Now, Progress 77, a Russian cargo ship, has blasted off towards the International Space Station aboard a Soyuz rocket. The ship launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome base in Kazakhstan and carrying supplies for the crew currently on board the ISS. NASA says Progress 77 will connect to the station's Pirs docking compartment after a 2-day journey. The unmanned spacecraft will remain docked to the space station's Russian segment until later this year. Now in China, several village resorts have transformed into winter wonderlands with spectacular light shows for the Lunar New Year. Jixian village in eastern Jiangxi province glows with warm lights at night as lanterns illuminate the village's traditional Chinese buildings. Colorful lanterns and icicle lights hang across the alleys, creating a mesmerizing scene that blends modernity and tradition. Meanwhile, a nearby pond hosts a spectacular laser light show where spotlight beams create massive lightsabers in the sky. Further north, in Jilin province, a village in Dunha city has been transformed into an immersive winter wonderland decked out with kaleidoscopic lights. Visitors can check out 16 sets of mammoth snow sculptures in the shapes of castles, ancient Chinese city walls and animals. Under the moonlight, young tourists cheer and dance around a bonfire while a firework display lights up the sky. Now, Pakistan has registered record growth in remittances during the current fiscal year. In a tweet, Prime Minister Imran Khan said the transactions from overseas Pakistanis increased by 19% over the past month. He said year on year, this marks an increase of 24% in money sent by expats. The remittances for January clocked at $2.27 billion, marking the 8th straight month with more than $2 billion in transfers. The Prime Minister thanked overseas Pakistanis for contributing to economic growth of the country. Khan pointed out that the country's industrial sector is also showing sustained growth. He said large-scale manufacturing saw another double-digit year-on-year growth in December, with a cumulative growth above 8%. Meanwhile, the European markets have advanced following a rally in Asian shares overnight. A successful vaccine rollout fueled investor hopes. Now, London's FTSE is leading the gains, adding over 1%. The CAC 40 in Paris has also ascended over 1%. Stock 600 and Italy's FTSE MIB too have added close to 1% each. Frankfurt's DAX has edged up marginally. Earlier, bourses in Australia, South Korea and Japan gained, while Japan's Nikkei 225 shattered records by surging past the 30,000 level for the first time in more than 30 years. Well, with that, we come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.